Hey everyone, welcome to the 216th episode of the Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's co-host is
Kevin Toffel.
And we have a stupendous show for you. We're going to keep talking a little bit about Google's crazy news last week on killing the Works with Nest program and give you guys some alternatives if you want to have a more open ecosystem. Plus, Amazon has now announced smarter routines and its Guard. We're going to talk a little bit about that. Verizon has a new NB-IoT network. We've got facial recognition getting banned in San Francisco. A couple little funding news announcements. Some rumors on the HomeKit front. And we've got Lenovo introducing an IoT gateway for the Edge. Plus, the Wi-Fi Smart Home certification is out, and we've got an update on that. This week, we will also hear from our sponsor, Dell Technologies, talking about VMware's Pulse. And our guest is Marielle Devesa, who is the head of global business at Fin. She's doing a deep dive on InsurTech and why home insurance companies are having such a hard time getting in on the smart home. All of this and more awaits you in this week's show. But first, let's hear from another one of our sponsors. This week's sponsor is Nordic Semiconductor. Nordic Semiconductor is the world-leading company in low-power wireless chips. And it's hosting a free technical seminar called Nordic Tech Tours beginning in June. A Nordic Tech Tour seminar is a day crammed full of knowledge and learning about wireless devices and free software that Nordic provides that makes almost any application a possibility. The seminars are totally free. You'll even get a complimentary Nordic Thingy, a 52 multi-sensor prototyping kit, and an NRF52840 dongle to take home and start inventing with. You'll be taken through topics such as Bluetooth LE, Thread, and Zigbee, as well as low-power cellular, IoT, LTE-M, and NB-IoT. Find out more and sign up for a Nordic Tech Tour event near you at www.nordicsemi.com/NTT. That actually sounds pretty cool. I would totally get a dongle. All right, let's move on to this week's show. Kevin! I feel like we've got to do a little bit of recapping. So, last week we spent a long time talking about Google because last week Google announced at I.O. It didn't really announce. It put up a blog post that said it was going to kill its Works with Nest program. So we dealt last week with a lot of the ramifications from that. And the biggest ramification, to sum it up, is if you have a Nest device, Nest devices used to talk on their own out to other devices. Now Nest devices will talk to the Google Home Hub and Google Home. And
which has been rebranded to...
Yes. I was like, which has a new name?
Well, that's the funny thing. They're not Nest Homes. There's the Nest Home Hub. There's the old Google Hub. There's the Google Mini. That's the weird thing. Some are rebranded, some are not. But regardless, yes, the Nest integration is going away.
Yes. And so basically, your Nest stuff will now talk to Google Home devices, and then all of your other devices will talk to Google Home. So basically, there's a middleman in the middle, which is where those middlemen like to hang out. People were really upset. It breaks a lot of functionality of all of your existing Google integrations and routines. So you're going to have to tweak that.
We mentioned all those third-party services such as If This Then That, YouKnowMe, Stringify. Those, if you have routines for your Nest, those will not work when the integration shuts down, which I believe is planned for August 31st.
Yes, the end of August.
Yes.
And starting the middle of June, Google's going to let you know that you can migrate your Nest account to the Google Home. You should not do that until you know that your other integrations are supported, though. That's my advice to you. Okay, our other advice is we've gotten a lot of questions from people. They're like, this is terrible. I'm so mad. What other devices should I buy? So we wanted to run down. We mentioned the Honeywell thermostats. The T5 is an excellent thermostat. Honeywell actually just put out the T9 and T10 thermostats. Those play with IFT, with Google, with HomeKit in many cases, and also with Amazon's ecosystem. Ecobee is another thermostat brand that works with a lot of other things. And I would be a little cautious there because Amazon did fund them out of the Madam A fund, but they are an independent Canadian company. So, and we love their products. On the doorbell front, August I hated their first doorbell. Their second doorbell I haven't tried yet because I'm in the middle of moving, but they do have a doorbell out. It works with other ecosystems. Arlo is announcing a doorbell that actually looks just like the Nest Hello, so I don't know if the hardware inside will be as good. And then let's see, cameras. Arlo makes cameras. If you could go all in on Arlo, given this news. And Arlo does actually have a good Madam A integration that shows you your Arlo cameras on a Madam A device with a display. Let's see, what other things would we want to know about? The smoke detectors. I can't really, in good conscience, recommend the First Alert because it's so expensive, but it is a connected smoke detector. I will say that if you are maybe doing the Google Amazon route, Amazon did just this week announce Guard, which is an interesting way to start getting remote notifications from your smoke detectors. Because Guard, when you leave your house, you basically turn this functionality on your Amazon Echo, and it will listen for both glass breaking and the sound of a smoke alarm or a carbon monoxide alarm.
And that will just send a notification to the account owner's phone, just so people are aware. You're not going to get a text message. You're going to get an in-app notification. It doesn't go to the whole family. It's just that one individual.
It will, however, send an alert to you through a monitored security service, or will send an alert to your monitored security service if you're using the Ring security service or ADT's security service. So you can actually elect to turn on Guard and have it send those notifications to your professional security firm if you have one. If not, just send it to you via in-app notification. The least notifying notification option there is. But it's a free service that you get just because you happen to buy an Echo. So, let's not complain too much.
All these options are for people who are not happy with the situation and want to move away from Google's ecosystem, I presume.
Yes. And I will say, our audience skews very heavily towards DIY. I will say most people, I bet there's actually a very large contingent of people who are going to get emails from Google about their Nest stuff. And they're going to be like, what? Google owns what? Nest? Huh? What do I do? I think there's going to be a lot of consumer confusion out there about this because most people are not that wired in.
Right. My point was, while you could choose to just completely change your whole smart speaker ecosystem, keep in mind that while Google has shut down Works with Nest, or will be shutting it down, they will be working with a limited number of integration partners going forward. And Amazon is a perfect example of that because they're working with Amazon to keep Nest working with the Amazon Echo products. So it may turn out that over the next couple of months, as that Works with Nest program winds down, the third-party services you use may come on board with the new system, so to speak. My point is, don't trash all your smart speakers today if you're on Google. You may want to wait and see what happens.
Indeed, or all your smart devices that are made by Nest.
Right.
So those are some lovely options out there for you on the Nest front. Let's talk about, Google Assistant appearing on a new device.
Oh, yeah. And we've only waited, I think, 19 months for Sonos to get this integration. But
I think that's how long elephants wait to have a baby. So,
That could be. I don't know. I'll look that up after the show. But yes, it is available. For me, it became available earlier this week when they announced it. They said a software update would be required. And I got the software update. I have a pair of Sonos One speakers right here in my home office, in fact. And the setup was typical of any third-party hardware setup with Google Assistant. You kind of get bounced around from the device app to the Google Assistant app and back and forth and whatnot. So I'm kind of used to it, but I don't like it. But once you get that done, it works perfectly fine. I tested it with a bunch of my smart home products that, it works like any other Google Assistant or Google Home device in my house, which is great. There are a few limitations because this is a third-party device, namely, if you use the Google Homes that you have to make or receive calls, well, that's not going to work here. Additionally, there are fewer music services that Google Assistant works with compared to Madam A. And I say that because the Sonos speakers got Madam A integration a while ago, well over a year ago, and there are more music services you can control there. So that's another limitation. But other than that, I'm pretty happy with it. I guess I'm wondering why I need a Google Home Hub in front of me and Google Assistant powered Sonos devices next to me now. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do.
Kevin, you're going to keep everything so you can test all the new and latest, greatest stuff.
So I'm going to keep everything so I can test all the latest and greatest stuff. Yes.
Excellent.
I mean, I want the Google Home Hub here because I can say, hey, gee, show my front door when somebody's at the front door. I can't do that with the Sonos speakers because they have no screen, obviously. So yeah, I guess I'll keep both. Right now, the Home Hub is muted and the speakers are not, but
we'll see.
I waited a long time for it. I'm happy with this, though, I must say.
Excellent. And I didn't realize this, but Kevin pointed it out. You can get this on the Sonos Beam as well. I was like,
I don't have one of those.
I'm looking at one of those because as part of my move, I will lose my surround sound that was built into my house. So I'm like, I now need one of those things that hangs above my TV, a soundbar. And having it work with my digital assistant might be a good thing. All right. So we've talked about a lot of digital assistant news. One little other thing. Amazon, we didn't talk about this last week, adds sunset and sunrise notifications. So now you can use that as a trigger when making a routine. And Google, their smart displays now get their own routine button, which I don't know if you want to tell us about.
I would love to because, again, I have the Google Home Hub right in front of me. It's actually not that it's not that exciting. Literally, if you swipe down on a Google Home smart display where it normally would have, here's your lights, shortcut links, lights, media, broadcast, thermostats, cameras, etc. There's a new button that says routines. And if I tap it, I can see the names of my routines. And if I tap that, one of those, it actually runs the routine. So basically, it's a way to quietly run any routines.
Excellent. Okay. Yay, routines. I'm not looking forward to having to set all of those up in my new home, but it'll be a fun story, a learning experience. All right, let's move away from the digital assistant world for just a little while and talk about the NB-IoT world. Last week, we talked about AT&T launching an NB-IoT network. Yay! Not to be outdone, this week at IoT World, Verizon announced their own NB-IoT network, which puts the US now where Europe is. In the US, the carriers went first with LTE Cat 1M, which has more bandwidth, but it isn't as battery efficient and I guess it costs more, so people were not thrilled. And now they're all like, we made a mistake. Everybody wants NB-IoT. So Verizon's network is now available over 92% of the US population, which means you're probably not going to find it in rural America. And NB-IoT, just as a quick reminder, is cellular, very small data rates, very, very tiny data rates. And Verizon's standard NB-IoT price plan is going to be 50 kilobytes of data with a $1 monthly access fee per device. This is very different than AT&T, which is like, here's $5 per device per year. So Verizon, we're already looking at $12 per year, and AT&T didn't really talk about data rates, but that also, I should tell you, was a starting point.
Well, I look at the consumer side of things and I'm like, I'm not paying for it. But obviously, if you're a business that's rolling out thousands and thousands of cellular connected devices for sensors and such, that's going to add up quick on a monthly basis.
Yeah, and as a consumer, you might see this, like you might buy a smoke detector, for example, that has an NB-IoT sensor in it and not really care about it. It'll configure automatically to the network when you download your app or turn it on. And what it'll do is, if anything happens, like smoke is detected, it'll send a signal that will either text you or give you a notification. And that sort of thing will probably just be built into the cost of the device, is my hunch.
Probably. I would agree. To be honest, I think I would want to see in certain sensors as a backup system, because if my home internet is out, well, I'm never going to get the notification.
Right. And that's the sort of thing, like your security alarm, maybe a flood leak detector. In a smart city, they're looking at using NB-IoT for temperature sensors, maybe for bridge maintenance type of sensors, that sort of thing. So
parking meters, maybe? I don't know. Yeah.
Parking meters, if they're transaction oriented, that's a fatter payload. So I'm not sure.
Oh.
It could be like, yes, someone is parked here right now, but I don't know if it would be actually sending.
Right. For transactions, it'd be different. Yep. Makes sense.
So that is the Verizon NB-IoT network. AT&T here at IoT World, not to be outdone by Verizon, launched a $1 million collaboration with the city of San Jose. Really, this is mostly technical expertise, And San Jose is saying, sure, you can play on our network for smart city stuff. So what they're doing is they're adding smart lighting controllers and lights to 14 parks across San Jose. So this is going, and 100 plus Wi-Fi extenders. Yay. And what they call digital infrastructure nodes that will help improve public safety. Digital infrastructure is AT&T's catch-all for a piece of hardware that you install on like a lamppost or something like that. And it's designed for the smart city, and people can use that data, pull the data from it, and build lovely apps. And it's lovely. Anyway, plus AT&T is going to give San Jose $200,000, I assume, so they could use this as a case study and a press release. So Go San Jose. Get it, get it. All right. We also have in city news, San Francisco has banned facial recognition. It's the first city in the U.S. to do so. It's kind of ironic given the technical acumen of the people, or maybe it's not ironic. They're like, yeah, this stuff is dicey and Orwellian as all get out. So let's talk about this. Kevin, what has happened?
Yeah, so this is a new, as you said, a ban on facial recognition technology. But the devil's kind of in the details. The ordinance is already passed. It always is. Yeah. When I first saw it, I'm like, so nobody anywhere within the confines of the city of San Francisco would be able to use facial recognition. But that's not true. It's the city itself. Basically, if city agencies would have to get approval to get surveillance devices and such, and it includes police body cameras, license plate readers, etc. They can continue to use what they already have. It's basically for new stuff. Private entities are not banned, just to be clear here. So
right,
if you walk in,
they're a private entity.
Because they're private entities. Exactly. But if you're walking around the streets of San Francisco going forward, you shouldn't have to really worry about facial recognition in use, other than maybe, again, private entities that are monitoring who's, I guess, walking past their front doors and such. But I don't know why they bother.
Retailers use it inside their stores to check for shoplifters. They have a known database of shoplifters, and if you get in there, you'll be escorted out. Even things like Amazon Go. Did they use facial recognition? No, I think
they did not.
They use the app on your phone, I believe.
Right.
They use product recognition to know what you buy.
I'm not on the shoplifters database, but in the casinos, that's a little sketchy. So anyway, I'm kidding.
Are you gaming the blackjack tables? I'm like, tell me more, Kevin. This podcast is taking a twist. Yeah. Okay.
The main reason for this is something we've talked about before. These facial recognition systems are pretty much heavily biased against people of color. They're not accurate, and that has led to some very valid concerns about being put in a database for not doing anything just because the system can't detect your skin color properly. It's a big hoo-ha. But anyway, that's what's happening in San Fran.
I'm not against this, I'll be honest. All right, let's move on to just a little bit of industrial news here. We're going to talk about Lenovo. They have introduced a new IoT gateway for the edge, which combines many of the hot, exciting words that we talk about today in the industrial IoT. We got edge. We got gateway. That's about it. We don't have AI or blockchain. Yeah. So what is exciting about this, Kevin? Anything? Just new hardware?
It's new hardware. It's kind of PC based. They came out with two small PC based systems. They're called the ThinkCentre Nano M90N and also the M90N IoT. So the IoT one, it's a small, I guess I'd call it a brick, runs on Intel processors. You can use Lenovo's software on it, or you can use Microsoft software on it if you'd like. And it's basically more like an industrial gateway, which I didn't really know that Lenovo was getting into.
Of course, that's where all the money is. So, yay.
I was going to say, considering the price, this is going to list for $539. And when shipping expectation is August, I'd say, yeah, there's a lot of money in this.
Yes, indeed. And they're tying back into Microsoft's cloud. So these will be optimized for that. Not that you probably can't bring it to other things. But yay, making the industrial IoT easier. That's actually a huge theme that we've been seeing both at CES. I'm still seeing at IoT World. We kind of started approaching the enterprise and industrial IoT with this very tech-focused perspective, which was like, we'll make it open source. We'll make it modular. We'll help you pull all the pieces together. And everyone was like, we do not want that. We want you to build us an actual solution because we do not want to think that hard about things. And so that is happening. You're still getting a more modular approach where you can buy certain hardware and then match it to your cloud. But we are seeing lots of SI, systems integrators, and other companies coming in and basically hand-holding people through that process because it's still hard. And I don't think we're entirely there yet. We're going to have some silos built up here in the next couple of years that will take, I don't know, a few more years and more maturity to break down. So that's where we are. Big picture, that's the big trend kind of thing I'm seeing here. And little bits of news that we forgot about. There's a rumor out there that Ring has now finally been certified in a developer platform somewhere with Apple HomeKit. This is something that's been promised since 2016. People who have Ring doorbells really want this to work. And
I'm a little surprised by this.
Really?
Yes. Oh, I know it was promised, but that was before Amazon bought Ring.
Yes, but they promised even after they bought it. That was one of the first questions we had. And this actually, this ties into something that we didn't really talk about, but we probably should have, which is this idea that when you buy these products, you're not only buying a promise, like Ring's promise that it will one day work with HomeKit, you're also buying a promise that the device will stay functionally the same. And that does not seem to be actually playing out, as we saw with the Google Works with Nest, as I saw actually, and everyone else saw with the Wyze sensors and the changing of the privacy policy earlier this month in preparation for the launch of its new Sense system. I wrote about this actually in the newsletter last week, and this isn't a new topic to most of y'all because we talk about it, but it's this idea that all of your hardware is now software. I don't know how to feel about this because there are clear advantages, right? And we've been through this with like the Kindle, where you purchase a book on your Kindle, you understand that you're buying basically DRM protected piece of work that may get pulled or changed, and Amazon will do the right thing and let you know and give you money back and all that sort of thing. But it's still not the same as owning a physical good.
Right. The bookstore's not going to come back to your house and take the book away from you that you purchased, whereas Amazon actually did do that at one point in time very early on with, I forget what book it was on the Kindle, but
1984. That's how ironic.
Fitting. How fitting. Good job. Great example.
It was. Yes. Gold-plated irony there. Yes. And so I think we have to, get used to this with connected products, right? I think if we're going to buy them, we have to recognize that this is the new contract. But I don't think we should just abdicate all of our rights. So I think there should be some better behavior around, if you're going to revoke a feature, that is a definite downer for the customer, right? You should do it with a sugary treat. So not just a carrot and a stick, you should give like a ice cream sandwich. And if you're going to revoke a feature, I think you need to offer something pretty substantial in return to the customer. I also think that if you're going to change the privacy policy, I don't know, Kevin, it's probably unrealistic that the challenge with the Wyze privacy policy change was they were like, if you keep using this device, you will agree to this change. And I'm like, the Wyze is a terrible example because it's $20. But if I had spent $600 on a connected device, then what am I going to do? I'm not going to throw away my $600.
Right. That's the thing. I mean, you've made an investment in physical hardware at that point. Would these companies, consider refunding your purchase price? And if you turn the product back in, well, they won't. I would love to see them do that because it would kind of force them to really hard evaluate if they're ever going to change those privacy policies. If they committed to a physical hardware return and refund policy, they're not likely going to change their privacy policies in the future.
Yeah, or they might because laws change, acquisitions happen. There are actually very legitimate business reasons or legal reasons to change your privacy policy. And Wyze is a good example. It didn't fit them anymore because they had a new product line with new features coming out, and those features happened to work through the camera. So I think transparency is the first thing. I think maybe it is a proration, or maybe it is a coupon, or it's so hard.
I don't know.
So if any of you guys have brilliant ideas, send them to us. This is an area I'd like to explore a lot more because this isn't a problem that's going to go away. And
it's probably only going to get worse, to be honest.
Yes, that is true. Thank you, Kevin, for that dystopian and cynical worldview that is nevertheless very accurate. All right.
1984.
Exactly. Final little bit of news for you. This is for people who are building new homes or buying new homes. It's a small contingent of people, but lucky y'all. The Wi-Fi Alliance has now extended its Wi-Fi certified home design program for single-family homes, multifamily units, and apartments. So basically anybody living in a new MDU apartment kind of system or the smart homes, the single-family homes have been certified now for a while. They've had this program. It's a way to design Wi-Fi as part of the home's infrastructure. This means it's going to have awesome coverage everywhere in the home, and they've got all kinds of tools and ways to make this happen. And it's something that the home builder does, or the apartment complex builder. So if you are moving into a place that has this Wi-Fi certified home design, it means you're going to get network connectivity in your garage, in your attic, wherever you may need it. This is very forward-looking at the Wi-Fi Alliance. I don't think many of us care about it as much today, but I think it's great that they're building this in. And also, huge props to them for building their standard into physical homes. Yeah. As part of this, Lennar has added Wi-Fi home design to 62 new multifamily communities nationwide, which that's a big deal. Lennar builds these ginormous planned communities all around. I know in Texas, we've got a bunch. I went to visit one. And
we've got them here in Pennsylvania, too.
Yeah. And speaking of Wi-Fi, Kevin, I do believe it is time for the Internet of Things podcast hotline. What do you say?
It is indeed.
This week's IoT podcast hotline is brought to you by Schlage. Schlage's wide variety of smart locks lets you create the smart home of your dreams. Learn more about Schlage's smart home solutions and compatibility with Amazon and Apple products, Siri, Google Assistant, and more at schlage.com/IoT. This week, we're going to get to your question, but first, I need to tell you, y'all, please call us if you would like to be featured on the IoT podcast hotline. Ask us your question. There is no question too dumb. There may be an answer that's dumb, like we're just like, no, but that's not on you. If you call us, you will be entered to win a Schlage lock. This is a very nice lock. It is a connected lock. I should have said that first. And fabulous, beautiful piece of hardware. So please call us at 512-623-7424.
If you call in by the end of the month, which is when we're going to pick our winner, odds are pretty good for you because we have not had that many calls lately. So get your questions in.
Get your questions in. You're highly likely that you could win, or more likely than normal. Plus, we are planning on doing a questions only episode very soon. So send them in because otherwise it's going to be a very, very short episode. Alrighty, that is 512-623-7424. And let's get to this week's question, which is from Jeff.
Hi, Stacy and Kevin. My name is Jeff, and of course you could use this on the show. I had a quick question regarding the mesh system. I purchased the Google Wi-Fi mesh, and I like it. The only question I have is, I know they don't make an outdoor one. I know the competitors make one. With summer coming, I'd like to get more Wi-Fi in my backyard. Is there a way to hook up an extender to it? If not, if you have a different solution, that would be great. I really appreciate it. Love your show, and keep up the great work. Thank you.
Okay, Jeff, we have an answer for you, which is both a good thing and a really pricey thing. So
you're not going to like it, Jeff.
You are not.
Spoiler alert.
Google Wi-Fi does not make an outdoor extender, but Netgear Orbi does. And wouldn't it be cool, Kevin, if he could just put that Orbi extender in there and it would use that cool Wi-Fi mesh technology we talked about a year ago that was a standard?
It would be so cool if it used Easy Mesh, but it doesn't. So you can't, because without the Easy Mesh standard implemented, you can only extend a mesh network with the same brand that you have today in your home. What a bummer, which is why we said this is kind of sucky. And expensive, because if you buy the Netgear Orbi one, which obviously will not work with your Wi-Fi, your Google Wi-Fi, I should say, just the outdoor extender is $350. But you'll also have to replace your entire in-home mesh networking system with Orbi gear. And the router alone is, $150, I think?
I think it's $200.
Oof. You're right. It's $250.
Oh.
Yeah. So you're looking at $600 just to extend to your outdoors. So unfortunately, it's your money. If it were my money and my use case, I don't use outdoor Wi-Fi that much. And when I do, I actually have a Google Wi-Fi unit close to the back of the house. So when I sit on my deck outdoors, I get a decent signal. If you have a bigger property or you don't have an access point near your outdoors where you want to use your Wi-Fi, maybe it is worth $600. It's not a primary use case for me is another way of saying this. And I would not do it. You may want to.
Yeah, it really depends on your setup. If you're going to do the indoor to the outdoor connection, setting it up near a window will help. It will help your signal extend a little bit.
In the home that you just sold, Stacy, you had a roof deck.
I did. And I put an Eero beacon because I had a covered area in the roof deck. Mm-hmm. But, and here's the caveat with that. I had an Eero beacon that I plugged in under there that would be protected from the weather. What I did not think about was that it is not protected from the heat of the Texas sun. And it would get up to 112, 115 degrees up in that cabinet. And the equipment couldn't handle it. So you don't just have to, depending on where you live, you don't just have to protect from the elements, you have to protect from heat and cold temperature extremes. So keep that in mind. The other thing I would say to you is I've actually tried out the Orbi gear. It is very powerful. I have 3 of the traditional Eeros in my home and 1 beacon, and that is more than sufficient in my home. But 2 of the Orbis, so the main Orbi and then 1 satellite Orbi, covered my entire house. So you may find that the outdoor Orbi and 1 indoor Orbi works for you. So keep that in mind. You may not need as many Google Wi-Fis as you have. All right. Well, Jeff, I hope that answers your question. I'd be curious if you have a $350 outdoor extender use case. You're like, yes, it is totally worth that.
Hey, more power to you.
And more Wi-Fi. All right. That concludes this week's news portion of the podcast. Please stay tuned to hear from Marielle Devesa, who is the head of global business development at Finn, talking about InsurTech and what it's going to take to get insurance companies to help pay for our smart home devices and why we may want that. Hey everyone, we are taking a quick break from the Internet of Things podcast for a message from our sponsor. This week's sponsor is Dell Technologies, and I have Mimi Spear, who is VP of the Edge and IoT business at VMware. Y'all launched VMware's Pulse IoT Control Center 2.0 SaaS. Can you tell us a little bit more about the news in this product?
So we just announced Pulse IoT Center 2.0 SaaS, and now we have both SaaS and on-prem solutions for our customers. This solution is both for the IT organizations and OT to have complete visibility and control across all their heterogeneous and fragmented IoT devices, edge computing, and connected sensors. This allows them to onboard their devices, have complete lifecycle management of those devices, monitor those devices, and have security across the device, the data, the application, and the network.
Excellent. So how does this fit into Dell Technologies and VMware's IoT and Edge strategy?
So we are developing an entire digital foundation for the edge. It is a natural extension to what we are doing across multi-cloud and our hybrid cloud strategy. And this consists of what we're calling the device edge, which are gateways and devices and sensors. And that's where Pulse IoT Center fits in. Then we also announced last week VMware Cloud on Dell EMC, which is really solving the compute edge, server class systems at the edge to do processing closer to where the things reside, so that when you want to do machine learning and AI and you want to have real-time decision making at the edge in your factories or in your car or in your retail store, you now can do the processing at the edge. And this is a full service provided by VMware with Dell hardware, and we manage the complete service. So it's an appliance as a service so that you can have it for your thousands of retail branches or factories. And then we've got the network edge, and the network edge is to manage the crazy network that's out there across all of your different types of network protocols, your extension of how you connect to the wide area network. Our software-defined wide area network called VeloCloud provides a solution for that.
So why should a customer choose VMware and Dell Technologies?
So we do 3 things for customers. The first is we are extending our digital foundation to the edge. This provides a flexible and open framework for our customers to be able to choose any application on any cloud for any device. Secondly, we are providing a foundation to secure any IoT endpoint or edge computing solution. So providing with guaranteed intrinsic security across their data, their devices, and their applications and their network. Finally, we're going to help them speed up innovation by providing them with more complete solutions from the edge to the cloud with our ecosystem of partners and our pre-integrated solutions that we've been building with Dell Technologies.
Where can our listeners go to find out more about VMware's Edge and IoT solutions?
Please go to our solutions page, www.vmware.com/solutions/edge.
Hey everyone, welcome back to this week's Internet of Things podcast. This is your host, Stacey Higginbotham, and today's guest is Marielle Zavesa, who is the Global Head of Business Development at Fin. Hi Marielle, how are you doing today?
I'm great, Stacey. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I am super excited for a couple reasons. One, we're going to talk a lot about InsurTech, so why insurance companies, what they can do and get out of smart things. But two, we're also going to get an update on Fin, which is a company I've been following for a while. Why don't you start off by telling us a little bit about Fin, what it is and what has just happened for y'all?
Sure, Stacey. So we have an intelligent water monitoring device. So what that is it's a sensor that attaches to the main water line, and it measures three different things. It measures the temperature at the point of installation. It measures how much flow is going through the pipes, how much water you're using, and we also measure pressure, which we'll get into a little bit later on. But what that allows us to do is to be able to understand how much water you're using, how you're using your water, and if there's any leaks or anything that's abnormal. So meaning we can tell you when you take a shower, how long your shower is, how much water you used, and we can tell you the difference between a shower, a toilet, a leak, and we have the ability to turn off your water remotely. So let's say you're on vacation and you get a call and it says water is coming from the ceiling, I don't know what to do. You can just pull out your phone, press a button, and turn the water off, or you can automatically have the system turn the water off for you.
Awesome.
Yeah, so some of the exciting news that we've had, I think the last that we spoke was before CES of last year. The company itself was founded in 2016 with over 10 years of history and research that started back in 2009 with the University of Washington. So we commercially founded the company in 2016, started selling the product in April of 2018, and then last week we announced a new funding of $12 million, which brings the total up to $37 million so far.
Awesome. And what are you guys going to do with that latest round of funding?
So part is for global expansion. So we have pilots running on multiple continents, which is really exciting. And then also on the product development and enhancement and growing the team.
Great. So let's get into this idea of the smart home and how a device like this fits into it. And you actually come from the insurance world. You were at Farmers Insurance, correct?
That's right. I was there for 10 years through all different parts, from forecasting to chief of staff to lastly, I was head of innovation. So connected home was something that's very important. And in my role there, I had launched many industry firsts within insurance, but related to the home and to smart home, water loss is a really important aspect because it's the second most frequent claim that is filed in over 10 billion of claims annually. And so understanding water loss and having be able to prevent it was really important. And then looking at different companies, I was really impressed with Fin when they were first in beta stage. And then throughout their progression, just constantly stayed in touch with them and was continued to be impressed. And I joined them last June.
Awesome. And I can tell you as a customer, I was with Farmers and I believe you guys processed at least 2 water claims from me. So, wah-wah! Now,
it happens. It's kind of crazy. It's 2% of all homeowners. So 1 out of 50 will have a water claim every year. And so when you start to look at that, with the average cost being $9,600 to repair that home, and then also average time out of that home, 90 days, it becomes a really impactful thing that you really want to limit, not only from a loss side, from an insurance perspective, but also on the homeowner side, on having to deal with contractors and potential mold issues and just being out of your home. If we can prevent that, we think that's an amazing thing, and that's the core at Fin.
So let's talk about this, because the Fin device, it's $699, which isn't insanely expensive thinking about how much a water insurance claim costs, but it's also pretty expensive when you think that most American households can't handle an unexpected expense of $400. This is a lot of money. And so when we look at buying something like this, do you think it's going to be the end consumer who puts this on their home? Are you trying to get insurance companies to pay for part of this? How do we get this in people's homes?
Yeah, great question. I think it's a mix of all. I think that when you first start, you'll have first movers, which will be those that really want the tech gadgets and really to be on the cutting edge and leading in technology. And that's what we're seeing. Also, from an insurance perspective, it absolutely mitigates losses. So progressive carriers, it is something that they're looking at. I think that it comes into the cost and the amount of profit that an insurer has on a homeowner policy. And then also there are some legal ramifications on rebating and different things that make it a bit more challenging. But certainly from a loss perspective, having these types of devices installed in the home is a material savings for the insurer. So what that translates to is having the consumer who buys it not only installing it, but also earning discounts on their insurance. So most carriers will offer between 5 and 10% off of their insurance premium for having one of these devices installed. So in the near term, I think that you'll see more of the discount happening. And then as it continues to progress and become more normal, then you're going to start to see it embedded in new builds and construction and then also retrofitted.
Okay. And in like new builds and construction, is that going to be something that the builders do as a competitive advantage? Is that going to be something that insurers are going to be like, yeah, we need this in this neighborhood? How does that start to happen?
I think it'll start with builders, a mix of builders and utilities. So when the company was founded, it looked at 3 really macro trends that were happening, one being increasing population, the other being changes in climate, and water being a depleting resource, and the third being aging infrastructure, both at the municipality level and then also at the home level. And so as we start to see waters continue to be stressed over the years, I think it's going to become more and more important to be able to limit or rather understand water use and prevent leaks from happening. And so as we think about it, that happens for builders and increasing what is really a smart home and how do you provide benefits back to the customer, both on the experience and also on the cost saving side.
Let's switch back to the insurance world because there is so much there. And honestly, I'm a little disappointed. I thought I'd be seeing a lot more insurance participation on the water leakage side, on the security side. And I feel like I basically get a 5 to 10% discount on one option. So if I have a smart alarm system, adding Fin really doesn't help me because I don't get an additional discount. And I don't see much, other than a few co-marketing agreements, I don't see much from the insurance firms pushing this. So I'm really curious, like, why this hasn't gone farther, faster?
Yeah, I think that from an insurance perspective, there are a couple of things that make it a little bit more challenging, or just rather areas that need to be looked at and revisited as to how something like this can be embedded into a carrier. One is the cost. The cost can be, when it's several $100s, that can be challenging for an insurer because insurer profit percentages are not what you would think of a normal technology company. It's sub 10%. And so in some years, it can be very, very thin. And so when you're looking at an average policy of $1,000 and a device is several hundred, the cost justification doesn't make sense. Yes, it makes sense over 10 years, but those carriers are not sure how long those consumers are going to stay in the retention. So that's one aspect. The second is that there's also rebating laws, which limit how much an insurer can provide to a customer for free. So let's say giving them a device, because in many states that maximum is up to $25 per year. So that's a very small de minimis amount. And thirdly, it's on the data side. So generally an insurer is a risk-averse company, and they want to validate that an increased discount is warranted. And how they would do that is, on average, they look for 1,000 claims to validate something. But if you think about that in new technology, that's going to take decades to be able to validate. And so a progressive carrier is going to be one that is going to look at the indication of saying, if I can turn the water off in someone's house when an incident happens, before that happens, that's going to be a material savings. That's going to be 75, 90% reduction in the water loss costs. And so that's where, we're working with great partners and doing in discussions of how we can strengthen what the carrier could do from a loss prevention side.
That makes sense. Now, what about some of the legal implications or the liability implications associated with like remotely turning off the water, or maybe it's remotely doing something else based on a smart device in the home? And I'm trying to come up with a really awesome example, and I'm really having a hard time, but like maybe there's a fire in the home and someone's trying to like cool things down by turning on all the shower heads, and Finn's like, there's a leak, and turns off the water. That could be a problem. I know this is a really random example, but I'm sure that insurance companies are thinking about liability from remotely controlling things in people's homes.
We haven't gotten concerns from that aspect from the carrier, from the consumer yet, and that it's always a concern on, am I going to be in the shower and, is grandma going to be in the shower and the water is going to turn off? I don't want the device to do that. And that's where it gets to be for Finn. Two key principles that baseline for us and just core to what we do is, one is that the hardware, just solid construction, because this is something that attaches to your main water line. So we want something that's very durable and is maintenance free for the customer. And then two is on the data side. So really important to be able to understand the difference between a shower, a regular shower, and a leak and a pipe that has burst. And so then that's where our technology comes in play, where we're not only just measuring flow, which we do through an ultrasonic flow meter, but we also measure pressure. And so every device, every fixture that you have in your house has a different signature. So if you can imagine when a toilet flapper goes up and it goes down, that creates a wave pattern in your water, in your pipes. And that can tell us the difference between a toilet, a sink, a faucet, and a leak. And so always we put this in the hands of the consumer, where we don't automatically, Finn would never automatically turn off your system, your home, if this is not something that you have asked to do. Auto shut-off capability is enabled by the homeowner. And then also when there is an alert, the consumer does receive a text message and a push notification before the water is shut off as well. And then once the water is shut off, there's also a notification. So we are very respectful of what the consumer wants to do, and also in informing them of what has happened and what they may want to do as a next action.
Got it. Okay. Let's talk about the insurance landscape from the perspective of data and new entrants into the market. Because when I see those Accenture, Deloitte, InsurTech reports, they're constantly harping on the fact that Google or Amazon could come in with their smart home data and basically offer competitive products. And I'm very curious, from someone at a startup and from someone who's worked in the insurance business, how do you view this idea of the big tech companies using all the data that they have to come into this market?
I think there's a real advantage there. I mean, I think there's two things. One is that the insurance industry in and of itself is not a high margin business. So that's one of the challenges, and it's highly regulated. So whether a tech company wants to go into it themselves or not, to be questioned. Is there room for disruption? Absolutely. And that's what you're seeing with new startups, where they're just really changing the process. Instead of having something, a policy being written, taking you signing up for a policy in a legacy, that might take 30 minutes. A new startup is doing that in 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And how are they doing that? They're taking advantage of a lot of data that exists. And they're also using other data sources to be able to validate what that loss ratio is. If we just think about it, having a customer that is going to spend $6.99 on a water detection, on a water shut-off device as a Finn, and installing it in their house, is a customer that on their first blush, they're a customer that cares about their house because they don't want to have damage. They're more engaged. This is an indicator of a better policyholder than your average book of business. And so these kinds of things are indicators for what a carrier could look at in the future. And certainly by having the data of purchasing behavior, of understanding alerts, of understanding what types of devices they have, changes the risk profile potentially. And so I think that the company that has the most data will win. The company that knows how to use that data will be the winner.
And what about our current legislation around privacy and data use? People are very concerned about how insurers may take their data and charge them more or less based on new factors, basically. I mean, that's what insurance is. It's if you behave in a risky manner, you should pay extra for it. But people are like, I used to know how insurance priced their insurance. Now I'm like, oh, they have so many more options. I guess, how do you think about that and how that may change the relationship, laws that are out there?
I think that data absolutely is very important, and privacy of data we take very seriously at Fin. So a couple of things. One is that why is data important to a carrier? One is that the data needs to be accurate and consistent across the devices. So that's where the hardware discussion becomes important, because the accuracy between one device and another device should be very similar so that you understand that your data set is producing the right kind of data insights to be able to warrant a result. So once you get those 1,000 claims, then they can use that from an actuarial perspective. So that's where they want to start using that data potentially. And also to be able to understand, okay, how much of a loss difference is there if someone has one of these devices? Do they ever file a claim? Do they file other claims? Is water an indication of the riskiness of that household? Other insights that you could gain. Now, the insurer has to get that data from a customer. And they can only get that with consent for the customer. And so in order to get consent from the customer has to receive a value that they feel is worthwhile for the data that they're giving up. Now you might say, well, who's ever going to do that? So it's similar to when you first started seeing telematics. So this is when, and Progressive was the first to do this through their program Snapshot, where you put a little OBD device, it's an onboard diagnostic device, you plugged it into the car and it provided data insights on how the consumer drove. And they received a discount. And then the industry moved into that, where now most carriers have some sort of telematic program. And what they do is they will offer a discount, and it is based on sharing the data. So what you could see is that in the future, now you're just receiving a blind discount on having one of these devices, but in the future it could be that you would receive a tiered discount, perhaps higher, significantly higher, by providing that data. And so for some consumers, then that's going to be the trigger where they'll say, you know what, I'm a good risk and I should not be paying this much premium because I'm offsetting someone who's a bad risk and I'm a good risk. So then I want the discount and I'm okay to share that data. And I think that's where you're going to start to see that shift where consumers are going to be okay with sharing.
Yeah, I can see, it might be really interesting if I purchased a Fin. And if I could say to myself, well, I own this data, and now I can offer that data through any sort of API ports to my insurance company, and they will provide me possibly a discount, or they will be like, yes, we will fight for your business. I would love to see them bid for my business based on my device data from Smart Home Gadgets. Is that crazy?
No, I think that's exactly where it needs to go. I think that you're the perfect example. You have so many different devices, but you're very connected. You're very connected to your home, to the data that's coming into your home, which means that you're a much better risk for losses not to happen in your home because you're so connected. And because of that, and because you've invested in your home and you've put these devices in and you're monitoring them, because you're a better risk, you should earn a better discount. And so I think that what you're going to start to see carriers, so this all gets back to, well, what's going to happen in the future? And when you look at some carriers where they're 50% auto, 50% home, and you look way down the road, some say shorter, some say longer, whenever it is, it will happen. When autonomous cars come into play, the personal lines auto premium as it is today goes away. That becomes a commercial policy. The risk profile changes because now it's more product liability. So that premium has to be replaced with something. What is that something? You know that the home, that's going to continue to be there, and you're going to continue to have these smart devices and more data. So where progressive carriers are looking to be is to be not only there when a claim happens and be there at the back end to repair the home, but they're looking at how do they come in the front end and be proactive and help that consumer before that claim even happens, and create a halo effect and just shifting the dynamic between an insurer and a consumer.
Awesome. I will look forward to that day.
I think it's coming. I think that there are some carriers that are really looking at it. I think also the challenge with some legacy companies is that they have very large books of business. So in order to put one of these devices in every one of those existing homes is a massive capital drain. And so some of the startups, they have a real advantage by being able to implement this new technology as their book grows, because the benefits are not necessarily in year 1, year 2. It's in year 3, 4, 10. And so that's where you start to really see the benefits, and it's going to be a material improvement for the book of business and their loss ratios for sure.
Excellent. All right. Well, Mariel, I feel smarter both about what's going on with Fin and how I might get to a better insurance world thanks to all of my smart home gadgets. So thank you so much for coming on the show this week.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Stacey. Really appreciate it.
That's it for this week. Thanks so much for listening. And remember, if you'd like more IoT news, sign up for my newsletter at stacyoniot.com. We'll see you next week.